The Miami Dolphins seem to be in an impossible situation. Now, just like me, if you are a Miami Dolphin fan as well, I've been suffering your pain along your journey as well. However, things do seem to maybe have the chance of taking a drastic turn, especially after these last announcements just recently in free agency and a couple of moves they've made. I, however, do not agree with the fact that we've been straggling to build an O-line, and we just had to sign on a one-year contract, which is a low-risk, high-reward maybe deal with James Daniels, Pittsburgh Steelers offensive lineman, and he actually did pretty good. I think 2022 and 23, he only let, two sacks? So that's not bad, but whenever you have to have a team try to snag other players out of free agency for the O-line, which is the heart of the team that keeps it beating, that's a problem. And just like everybody else here, if you're a Miami Dolphin fan, you've suffered from the same thing as me. We haven't had a great franchise quarterback since Dan Marino. Now, no problems against Tua, no hating towards Tua. I wish him the best. But this video is for us to dive deep into the situation of quarterbacks at the Miami Dolphins. When you take into consideration the draft class we just had, the draft board didn't crack our way. We were trying to get probably Kelvin Banks, Armin Mbell, but they weren't there. So by the time our pick came, we were struggling and we worked on the defensive tackle side. We got Kenneth Grant from Michigan. Was there other players maybe better? I don't know. I'm actually a Kenneth Grant fan. A lot of other people will tell you different, that they felt there could have been better things chosen. However, the defensive tackle position was a good thing to attack because Miami was one of the teams that struggled rushing and getting to the other quarterback and putting any type of pressure. Good thing we had some pretty good cornerbacks like Ramsey, which the departure is probably not far away, and we needed to fill in on that role. So there's a lot of little things we had to fill in on. So did we pick the best in our draft? No, and I've complained about this plenty of times. The Dolphins passed up on Lamar Jackson before when we grabbed Minka Fitzpatrick, was it that year on 13, and Lamar Jackson was the 32nd pick to the Ravens? Is that familiar to y'all, or am I just tripping? But I know one thing for sure. The 7th round draft pick of Quinn Ewers was actually a steal. Two things Tua and Quinn have in common is playing through injuries. Now, however, Quinn seems to have an edge to him with the scrambling ability when he extends plays. Really great. Let's take it back to that Michigan game, right? When he was playing Michigan in the opener and he was targeting Gunnar Helm, which is going to be with Cam Ward at the Tennessee Titans now. And he played an extremely good game in Michigan when he was full-blown healthy. Now, as the season progressed, you saw a little bit change in his game. He even sat out a little bit for the injury that he had, but he played through his injury for majority of the season. And if you really look at it, even Kurt Benker, I saw his my bad if I mismentioned your name anyways, but I did see his video where he was talking about the quarterbacks and about the gameplay, and he even noticed how there was a decline in his game after certain games that he played. Arch Manning is obviously the next man up. Quinn Ewers was a top draft prospect. Well, draft no, but coming into college, 5-star recruit, he was the hype, talk of the town. Then goes to Ohio State, got homesick, roommates with Jack Sawyer, which ultimately would be the guy that causes the forced fumble for him to lose and not get to the natty. And they punched their ticket to the natty, if you ask me, Jack Sawyer with the fumble touchdown. So, in my opinion, I really do believe that the Dolphins made a great decision with drafting Quinn. Now, however, we did pass up on Shadur and a lot of other things because they have Tua under this big contract. Now, let's not forget, we all know, even though as much love to Tua, 23 was a great season for him. He came in, he snapped, did all that. But then he started getting hit. And the concussions became a repetitive thing. And if you ask me, the same thing in his game, the decline started happening. Now, we take it back to Tua when he threw that game-winning throw, right? When he came in the game out of nowhere and won the championship for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Roll. But at the same time, you already know when he took that injury to his hip and that the jaw was broken, if I'm not mistaken, as well, which I'm going to end up putting right here on top right here now so you guys can see it. But we all know the fact that after that injury, the Dolphins still grabbed him because he was a prominent, very great quarterback, and let's not forget that. But I don't think the injuries were taken into consideration too much because his 2023 season was great, and the Dolphins looked to be picking it up and getting it together. He had weapons. He had Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill even went viral saying that this man was probably the best quarterback and most precise to put it in his hands. I'm just being honest. He did actually do that, and he would target plenty of other receivers when he had great moments with Mike Gesicki and a lot of other teammates and receivers and tight ends he targeted, and he would spread the ball around. He even had Tyreek with a great season in yardage, catches, and receptions, right? But at the same time, all good doesn't last forever. They did get Tua on a super duper $1 million contract, And if you ask me, the production from him hasn't been that great compared to the money. Now, yes, thank you for everything you did, Tua. You did bring us to the playoffs, which we haven't been successful at getting past not even the first round. Let's be real. Last time was with Jay Ajayi and Ryan Tannehill, wasn't it, right, guys? If I'm not mistaken. And with the first round eliminated. So let's get over that hump, y'all. It's about time. And the first thing we got to realize, yes, we need an O-line, but we need a quarterback. We need a real franchise quarterback with Tua's super expensive $1 million contract. So our salary cap, we must be mindful, but we need to get one of these good guys coming out into this draft class now. Like, for example, Drew Aller. If Carson Beck is able to have a great season in the Miami Hurricanes, who's to say he can't be selected? Now, will the Dolphins lose enough games to have a top pick and draft someone like Drew Aller, Cade Klubnik, Carson Beck? Maybe not, but this quarterback draft, I'm actually liking it because there is some franchise looking quarterbacks. And if Carson Beck bounces back from that elbow injury he had and has a great season in Miami, which we missed the playoffs just by a bit, the Hurricanes, if he even makes it into the playoffs, at any point, and he's still going to be a first-round draft pick, in my opinion, that shows he overcame that elbow injury. And to me, he definitely would deserve to go anywhere. But let's not jump ahead, y'all. Quinn Ewers might be the Superman we needed. The new Cam Newton, the Superman guy. And no, we don't get Johnny Manziel, Texas swag from Quinn Ewers, but we do get a guy that has good grit. He's tough. Quinn's a tough guy. He's just a little bit taller than Tua, standing at 6'2". Now, let's not forget, Tua in 2019 had his first big injury, which was the high ankle sprain. The 7th game of the season. He had surgery, but he returned 3 weeks later. 1 week after his return, then 21 years old, he suffered a slew of injuries on same play versus Mississippi. While taking a sack versus the Bulldogs, Tua fractured his pelvis, dislocated his hip, broke his nose, and suffered his first concussion in what would become a list of long history of them. It was the last game he played at Alabama before declaring for the NFL Draft 2020. His career stats in 2017, he had 77 attempts with 49 completions, 11 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Obviously, he wasn't playing much at Alabama. He was playing behind. 2018, however, 355 attempts with 245 completions. This was actually a great year for him. 43 touchdowns to 6 picks. If you ask me, that's a great year. And then 2019, 252 attempts, 180 completions, 33 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. So notably less touchdowns, but less interceptions too. And he attempted less passes. So let's not forget that. His quarterback rating and completion percentage, everybody knows Tua's great at that when he actually is throwing to spots where he can be accurate, because the deep balls he kind of struggles with. Let's not sit here and act like Tua's this deep ball great type of guy. Sorry, that sounded wrong right there. It sounded like ball, but no, that's not what I was saying. And then now let's say Quinn Ewers, right? 2022, he attempted 296, completed 172 with 15 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. He threw for 2,177 yards. 2023, he attempted 394, completed 272. He had 22 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, but he threw for 3,479 yards. The year after that, which would be the last year he would play for Texas before declaring for the NFL Draft, he put up 3,472 yards, attempting 445 passes and completing 293 of them, with 31 touchdowns and a pretty high number of interceptions at 12. So, at the end of the day, yes, Tua probably had arguably a better offensive line and, his schemes in Alabama, but he did have somewhat of a better college career if you want to look at it statistically, but he never was able to stay healthy, even coming into the NFL. The concussions, when he got hit, the first concussion he suffered in the NFL, everybody was on the sideline crying, I'll have it playing here. You guys will see it yourself. All right, y'all, but keeping it real, there's no team without an O-line. So let's talk about the draft picks the Dolphins actually targeted in this O-line, which would be Jonah Savainai, right? They traded up to get him. Now, there were some spectators and people, even one guy drafted him a C in their picking class, but I would agree, because on the defensive side of the ball, really it was a pick that I thought we would really end up going after would be Will Johnson, because let's be real, there's Jalen Ramsey trades filling in. By June 1st or July 1st, we won't have Ramsey. He'll probably be traded. You know what I'm saying? And we got to fill the cornerback position.
The Miami Dolphins move up to pick 37 in a trade with the Las Vegas Raiders to select guard Jonah Savainai from Arizona. Savaiinaya was an offensive tackle at Arizona, but he will now transition to guard in Mike McDaniel's wide zone scheme. So here, I give this grade a C. And I give it a C because I feel they have more pressing needs on the defensive side of the ball here at 37, but they select to go with offense, and I understand it. He fits well. He's a big, dense man that will help them get moving in the run game, but most importantly, he will help set a firm pocket and protect quarterback Tua Tagovailoa and keep him healthy. So with the Dolphins pick here at pick 37, I give them a C.
You know, at the end of the day. Now, last year, let me tell you a little quick fun facts, right? Last year in the second half of the season, we actually did pretty good when we had Storm Duck and Kohu at cornerback, and Phillips wasn't there, Chubb wasn't in, and everything, and we actually ranked top 10, if I'm not mistaken, in the secondary. So people are panicking about these certain corners and certain part of the secondary, but I mean, of course, Ramsey's always been a big part of it. Fuller, of course, is, you know, but at the end of the day, y'all look, last year, Holland had one of the worst tackle percentages in the league, so our secondary is a big need. Will Johnson would have been that player that I thought Miami would have grabbed and attacked the defensive side of the ball, just like we had got Kenneth Grant to attack the defensive line, which was not a bad pick. But then again, like I said, there is probably some better routes we could have went. Now, when Quinn's drafted in the 7th round, y'all, right, that's actually a steal because now we work on this offensive line. We did end up getting 2 defensive tackles, but let me tell y'all, and let's break it down like this, right? Ollie Gordon as a running back was a steal running back. Had he went to the draft about a year earlier when he put up all those records, he probably would have won the draft in a way higher pick. But then when he stayed in and opted in another year and he didn't do as good. But when I tell you guys this kid is a rocket, now the problem with Miami is that the offensive line has been bad and the run game has been pretty bad. So with Devin and now we have Ollie Gordon there's more of a threat. We got this guard with Savaiinaya. He's moving the guard in Mike McDaniel's scheme. Mike McDaniels could be put in the hot seat, you know, in the next couple of years if things don't pick up a little bit. But I see which way he's going. When they signed James Daniels to a 1-year deal, and then now you get Jonas Savaiinaya, because remember, we have the departure of Armstead. So we have a little problem there. But now you get this young running back, young talent, right? And you take some pressure off of Tua now. Tua's the veteran. Tua's on contract till 2028, and we don't have room, if I'm not mistaken, to get out of this contract till 26. So we're with Tua. But don't you guys think that's a perfect amount of time to build from now, 25 season, and then 26 season for Quinn to stay behind someone and come in if need be? Because, I mean, it looks like to me like he would fill the void very well, right? So, yeah, if you look at it that way, as a 7th round pick, Quinn isn't even entitled to as much as he probably should have been worth, and I'm just being real. You know, he almost made it to the national championship, I would say. You know, if it's not for the turnover on balls sometimes that he's had, which was specifically before Ohio State, which I showed it to y'all, he probably would have been in the naughty. That's the truth about that situation. But now with Tua, it's just about staying healthy. Now, look, if the Dolphins stay healthy, y'all, and Ramsey obviously is going to be leaving, so now the defensive part of the ball becomes, you know, a little worrisome. But if our offense stays healthy, Tyreek Hill is even in talks of the trades. You know, Tyreek Hill most recently named his top 5 quarterbacks. He didn't name Tua. He named Baker Mayfield, if I'm not mistaken, Patrick Mahomes. Like Baker Mayfield, it was a lot of Lamar Jackson. It was a lot of good quarterbacks I wouldn't be surprised with, but no Tua, but added Baker Mayfield. It didn't make sense to me.
Said, could I rank my top 5 quarterbacks? Lamar, Josh, Pat, obviously. No, this is no order, by the way. Baker Mayfield and Joe B.
And then he had to go to the Rolodex.
Yeah.
And you're laughing about the Rolodex of which one stand like.
I mean, obviously Baker stands out. Listen,
He got tired at the 4.
He got at the 4. He was like,
I'm just throw a name.
He started spinning wheels after the 4th one, man. Just threw Baker in there. But listen, man.
So the locker room culture and the division in there has been kind of spoken on. Jalen Waddle, I heard, had some, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I know this for a fact. But remember, when the culture of a city like Miami and you don't have great unity in the locker room, there's going to be problems, you know? When you don't have that chemistry amongst players and teammates, there's going to be problems. So yeah, we attacked that problem. We got Jonas Savaiina, and he's gonna help keep him. Now, since Armstead is left, now let's imagine we got two running backs, we got a duo now, right? We can run this ball. We could get to start running this ball. The Dolphins' offense could be real dangerous because Tua, although not a very accurate deep passer, he could every now and then, but not a very, very accurate deep passer. But in the intermediate, short throws and things like that, he's really great at it, and he can be mobile too. So all I'm saying is, if there's at least somewhat of a good O line that can be pretty good, and we can get some running game going, our offense can be really, really like detrimental. And like I said last year, in the second half of the season, it was surprising when we did how well we did with our secondary, but we did. So how do you guys not know those aren't hidden gems that actually are going to be used? You know, with the loopholes we might have to fill in secondary, because free agency is other lot of things. But now let's get to the nitty gritty of it. Quinn Ewers steps up and becomes our starting quarterback, right? Ollie Gordon takes steps his level up, strength and conditioning in the NFL, gains his little weight, does what he has to do in the weight room, polishes his running skills, and they build this O-line around him, and they got this young talent, and Quinn comes in here, y'all, and he starts really slowing the game down for himself. Coming in from college to NFL, he slows the game down and he's able to make plays. You guys, Quinn could really be a slept-on franchise quarterback. And guess what? By being in the 7th round, he is not too much of a high risk for the Dolphins. Let's just say that.
Here we go. With the 231st pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Quin Ewers.
Texas Longhorns quarterback Quin Ewers, selected as the 231st overall pick in the 7th round of the 2025 NFL Draft by the Miami Dolphins, has agreed to a standard 4-year rookie contract with the team. This deal, typical for players drafted in his position, is projected to be worth approximately $4.33 million over the duration, with a signing bonus in the range of $131,000 and an estimated cap figure of $840,000 for the 2025 season. Ewers, who had a somewhat surprising slide in the draft after being a highly touted recruit, now joins the Dolphins quarterback room alongside Tua Tagovailoa and Zach Wilson as he begins his professional football career in Miami.
He really isn't. Because look at Shedeur Sanders. He was drafted, in the 5th round, he signed a $4 million deal. Look at Cam Ward. 1st round, what did he just sign? A $43 million deal with 30-something million signing bonus. Cleveland Browns actually drafted some quarterbacks, and their risks on the quarterbacks, even though they got old, quarterback base there too, like Flacco and things, but money-wise, Shedeur Sanders would have been worth way more than that. I would have loved the Dolphins taking him, but I've already repeated that. All I'm going to say here is this. Since they drafted Quinn in the 7th round, Quinn has a couple of these years playing behind Tua. Tua stays healthy, we can be a problem. We obviously have to build on the defense, but if Tua does stay healthy and the Dolphins do somewhat good. Remember, next year, y'all, we got a lot of picks, including 1st-round picks, and we even traded up and got some draft stock this last trade right now in this last draft class. So we got some picks. Next year can be the year that we can really draft well. And in my honest opinion, depending on how we do, remember that. This year can have a lot of twists and turns and loopholes, but depending on how we do, imagine if Tua wasn't healthy, which God willingly he is. Quinn comes in and does great, and he looks like a franchise quarterback. That'll be even greater. But let's just say he doesn't, right? Next year we have a 1st-round pick, and we got a good quarterback class that I'm really excited about. I see a Josh Allen and a Drew Aller. I see some real good. I see a Drew Brees and a K Klubnik. Maybe it's somewhere. I'm not trying to say exactly like that, but some similarities. That's all I'm saying. Man, we got Arch Manning coming in the league. I'm not saying he's gonna declare for the NFL draft next year, but at the rate that he's going in the draft stack class that he's been in, the hype around him, you never know, man. And the draft class for the quarterbacks, I really like it. So we have enough draft stock, is what I'm saying, for us to take risks and draft us a great quarterback that can take us to the next level and get us a franchise quarterback. Remember, once you get that franchise quarterback, which I believe Tennessee Titans just did with Cameron Ward, and then Gunnar Helm with that tight end. Now, tight end is another problem at Miami. You guys know we have to fill in good on that tight end. Next year's draft stock is perfect for that, okay? Even running backs. If our running back room stays a little, Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame, that's a standout player that I really like. And I'm just going to keep this 100 with y'all. Let's just say hypothetically, right? We need to start drafting some real hard caliber, explosive players to make this team great again. Of course, the quarterback position comes first. That's what we're attacking. Quarterback first. O-line solidified. We need that. Free agency and even offseason, we can attack cornerback and safety, but we need to attack safety for sure. Okay, cornerback, we're looking like we got some young prospects, maybe a step up. But safety, we still need a defensive back in there. Star, Will Johnson would have been the perfect fit. Okay, things didn't crack that way. They didn't expect it to go that way. They didn't want it that way. Chris Greer makes his decisions for whatever reason he does. But we struggle with sacks. Kenneth Grant was a good addition to that, and we can add on again next year with all the picks we have to defensive tackle. But I'm just saying, at quarterback, if we don't do well, which we look like, in my opinion, what it looks like to me is the Dolphins are going to be well off. They're not really focused on the quarterback next draft class, and that first-round draft pick would be smart. We can get the best DB around. We can get the best running back around. You know, sometimes if Ollie Gordon and Devin, and even the running back room isn't deep, but we can build on that O-line, especially in the first few rounds of next year's draft too. You guys, we can get a Jeremiah Love, or we can land a great running back like that, y'all. It can just change the Dolphins team from nothing to something like that quickly. And everybody knows that. Having Tua and Quinn together might be a great quarterback duo. Let's just be real, because when Tua's healthy, he can really pull off wins, close wins. He can really do it. And let's just say when he does get hurt, if we have a quarterback that can really fill his shoes and end up taking over eventually, because Tua's obviously had a concussion problem, then we got Quinn Ewers. And if it's not that way, our next draft stock, we have a lot of picks to pick from, y'all. So can Quinn Ewers make Miami great again? He actually does have the talent to do it. Now, we do need to get weapons for him to do it. If we trading off Tyreek Hill, we need to keep some receivers in that room, even though we have Jalen Waddle and we do have some young receivers. So I'm not complaining about that. But we would need to draft some receivers. That's for sure, no doubt. That's why a receiving back, which can do both as a running back, would be great, and we add on to that. But we need to get a tight end in the scheme that Mike McDaniels is running with the Dolphins. We need to get a good tight end as well. And I wish we could have got Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland in this past draft class, but obviously we couldn't. So that's something to look forward to. But for sure, at the safety position, we cannot have that lack of tackle. And then lacking getting to the quarterback as well. Okay, Kenneth Grant, I really like that pick. I don't care what anyone else says. Now, Jonah being moved to the guard position, that's what we're going to have to, sit there, have him well fit into there. He's a big dude. He's pretty big. I like his size, and I like the way he moves. His strength is pretty well, too. He actually has some good ball skills. But at the end of the day, I think there could have been better choices made. And I think a lot of people would agree. So next year, I project us to win anywhere between 8 to 10 games tops. That's my prediction. 8 to 10 games, because Tua comes in healthy completely. Quinn played through an injury basically 2024, and now he has a chip on his shoulder to prove himself right now to people. So I really believe if he gets that chance, and I've heard he's doing good, he's gonna snap. But however, these signs could be shown, maybe even 7 games at the lowest, but these signs can be shown from him as a quarterback. And when they are shown, and if he is the franchise quarterback from what it looks like, that'll be great, because we took him at the 7th round. He proved himself. Tua would depart himself with that big contract if he had a way out in 26. Maybe somebody can use him if it had to be bye-bye with him, even though it's much love to him. But Quinn can step up. Now, if not, you guys, I'm rooting for Drew Adler. You guys, I'm rooting for Carson Beck. You guys, a lot of people don't like Carson Beck for whatever reason, but me, I think that kid's going to lock in this year and have a good future. So let's see if he locks in and does what Cam Ward did and leaves number 1 in the NFL. You never know, y'all, because the lack of quarterback position in some places is crazy. But for sure in the Dolphins, that's just a spot that we're not 100% sure on. Now, of course, things like that, keeping your quarterback healthy, that's on you to do as a team. So O-line must be built. With our draft class next year, y'all, that's what we plan on doing. We will be departing with Jalen Ramsey. It won't be far from now, you guys, so don't get too attached to him. But look at it on the bright side. Like I told y'all before, without Chubb and without Phillips at defensive tackle, that's why I'm saying we need to build on that. But Phillips stayed hurt. But without them even then, our defense played even better in the second half of the year. So it's better to say, all right, we have playoff defense performance towards the second half of the year. That would be great. So can Quinn Ewers make Miami great again? Yes, he can. He actually can. If he actually plays up to that level and stays focused how he is and plays with the chip on his shoulder from being drafted a 7th round pick, he can be an easy sleeper for Miami, a diamond in the dirt, and he can step up to the plate. And then Miami can let go of Tua if need be. And hey, Tua, you made millions, hey, everything good, but health is wealth, and your health comes first, right? And Quinn can step up because his injury was never as bad, but he did play through an injury through 2024. He's a tough kid, and he's smart, y'all. He has a great football IQ. He's a steal in the round he got picked in. Quinn Ewers can make Miami great again. However, it's really good coming into 2025 season to know we got spare room, and that, at the end of the day, we got all these draft picks next year that we could just fill in on. And in free agency, I think Chris Greer need to do a better job, you know, they're doing good at what they can, you know, but they need to do a better job at filling in on those spots. But I think they were really relying on this next year's draft class, 2026. Everything is a build-up, y'all. So can Quin Ewers do it? Yes, but this year, however, don't be too excited. We're depending on Tua, these couple changes we made on the O-line, and we actually have a couple things that we actually did in free agency and offseason that can make a big impact. So I look forward to it. Quin Ewers being added to this team. Welcome to the city. Me being a Miami resident my whole life, I'm very excited to this. And I'm looking forward to next year. We definitely drafting a great tight end. If we get a tight end on some Gronk vibes or something like that, and we get our quarterback set off in the rocket right, and we get a good O-line, we're good to go, fellas. So that's the update right here, y'all. Quin Ewers make Miami great again. He can. Thank y'all for sticking around. I really appreciate the support from everybody. I dropped a video on Sean Taylor not too long ago. I got another video on the way for Legends Never Die series. And I also got another video dropping the Notre Dame versus Miami Hurricanes prediction. But here it was specifically more about the quarterback, and that's what it was really based on. I didn't get into too much into depth on details and secondary and names here and names there. I gave y'all a little spill on that, but I didn't get too into depth because this was more on the quarterback situation. And like I said, even Cade Klubnik is a great quarterback. And like you guys know, with us having all these picks next year, there's a lot of quarterbacks. You know Diego Pavia from Vanderbilt, y'all? He's a real big sleeper, and he was able to play for 6 years out of, I think, some loophole with the UCO or whatever. But y'all, imagine that kid right there that beat Alabama, Vanderbilt. Imagine that kid comes in and was selected like, yo, to me, he's 26, but if he had a good 4 years, 8 years in him, yo, that's all you would need out of someone. You know what I'm saying? But that's just some random stuff. But I'm saying why I said him, because he could be a quarterback that if the Miami Dolphins wanted to attack like the main things needed in the first and second round, he probably would fall to the third or fourth, fifth, sixth round. He could be another quarterback that could be a sleeper like Brady in the sixth. Remember, y'all? That's all I'm saying. Look at these quarterbacks that are coming in. Just like the running back that he had playing with him right now. I can't remember his name, but at Vanderbilt too. He was also a sleeper. So I'm saying these type of sleeper picks are who you need to look for. Sleeper guys are the people that you need to look for. These scouts need to look for to build a great team and make Miami great again. That's no doubt about it. But in the quarterback class next year, I like it. I don't like it better than this year's draft class in quarterbacks, but as a whole, yes. Because I like Cam Ward over any quarterback, but the draft class as a whole next year will be better when you have Cade Klubnik, Drew Aller, Carson Beck. You know, just naming a few of them, but just letting you guys know there's going to be a few good quarterbacks to select from if the Dolphins needed to go that route. And if they didn't, we can build up and get us a great tight end. And from there, you know what I'm saying? Hey, get you an Oscar Dub. Get you a great tight end and fill in there. Get you some more weapons. Get you a great running back, a Jeremiah Love. Get you some things going. Get you another Will Campbell that's coming out, you know, and start building up and solidifying that for y'all. So have a good day, y'all. Tony Talk TV, Tony Talk CFB, college football for the streets. It's dumb love, y'all. Appreciate the support. Like, subscribe, comment, give me y'all insight. Whatever it is, bad or good, I take the negative, positive, whatever. But we're here turning a negative to a positive. That's what we do, baby. Let's get it. Chill.